Hello, everyone. I am on hour 22 out of 24 in my 24 in 24 for Sam's challenge, where every hour on the hour for 24 hours on today, 24th of July, 247. I am, speaking on a topic, or I've got a co-host that's going to be discussing a topic that's close to them, so that we can have conversations that actually matter. First of all, to fundraise for my branch. I just want to thank Jolie and the company Proven Works for supporting me so much. And making the donation. The other thing is also to raise visibility of what we do, which is to be there for our callers who might be in crisis. So what I'm doing here is I'm just creating the space so we can have like really deep conversations. I started this challenge at midnight, so I've had over 20, kind of deep conversations with friends, who have shared, a lot of things that I didn't know. Uh, the things that they've been going through, and hopefully, by doing this, we can show that all we need to do is just create a space, and allow human connection to happen. So with this, I'm looking forward to what um, the conversation I'm going to have with Jolie. So hi, Jolie. How are you?
Hi, Pay. How you doing? I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I admire you still being awake after 22, 21 hours of this already. But yeah,
Thank
well
you.
done. No.
And thank you for stepping up. You're one of the first person to say, "Hey, how can I help?" And to give my time and to talk about this topic, not uh, 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 this topic that needs more, more people talking about it, about mental health. So I'll let you share your story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah. So, as you know, it is a topic that I'm passionate about, and Samaritans is a fantastic charity. Everything that Samaritans do is just it's mind blowing. Um, the lives that you save, the differences that you make in people's lives, is really, really important. And to be able to have that conversation is so important. There's so much about mental health that's um, not understood. It's stigmatized. It's not talked about because it's seen as perceived as a weakness,
Hmm.
perceived as something which should not be talked about. But we all, to a greater or lesser degree, we all have a level of anxiety, depression. Those are probably the two most common forms of mental health, which occur in everyday life. I've got a slideshow. Shall I share that now? Yeah,
You
yeah,
can go.
absolutely, yeah. So if I just share on my screen, where have we gone? Select the tab to share or window. Entire screen. There we go. Okay, you can see my screen now.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So just a little bit about myself. There we are. So a bit about myself. I work for Proven Works, so we're an ISV, Salesforce ISV, doing a range of tools for data quality, data integrity. A lot of people have heard of us. Obviously, like to keep the name out there, which is why a lot of people see me around at different user groups, etc. But I've worked in sales I'm working sales there, and I'm currently in the EMEA region. I've worked in sales for about 30 years now. Um, Although I recently retrained as a hypnotherapist, advanced hypnotherapist. Um, Hence my interest and passion about the mental health side of things. I've only been associated with Salesforce a couple of years now, just over 2 years. But I say I get passionate about mental health and what is needed. I spend my weekends either working for, I think there's a charity I do with, who I am there as safeguarding to look after the mental health of clients of the charity, or if I do get free time and the weather permits, I'm out on the hills hiking. So that's just a little bit about myself. You can see the difference there. This was me, 2014, deeply, deeply troubled, on levels of antidepressants that is not worth talking about. It was ridiculous. Fast forward there to 2025, no antidepressants. Having gone through and worked through a lot of the depression, anxiety attacks, by simply accepting myself and being true to myself rather than trying to live a life that should please other people and do what other people wanted me to do. So a lot of sort of anxiety and depression, they are very, very real issues, but they come down to there's a lot of internal acceptance, particularly that I needed from my side of things. So just talking of mental health, what's covered? And I've just pulled up this list here. This is probably the top 10 um, disorders, conditions, as it were, that would affect people in, particularly in the UK. These are, and the statistics I pulled up here just to give you some idea of the sort of level of them. Anxiety obviously is the top one. We may call it anxiety, we may call it stressed. Common one was stressed at work. That's a kind of anxiety because we've got a lot on. There's a lot of pressure. We need to achieve it for a certain time. If we took the deadline out of all that amount of work you had to do, that anxiety would disappear.
mm, mm,
But because someone's putting that pressure on to achieve, to deliver by a given date, we're worrying about what happens if we don't. And this sort of level of anxiety is, it's a very, very common one. And depression, again, it's a very, very real thing. This is a medical condition. It's not something you can turn around to somebody and say, just snap out of it.
mm,
It is a real thing. When I was at my lowest, which was probably in about 2016, I physically couldn't get out of bed. It was just, it's debilitating. It really is debilitating. Yet, the environment I was in then, it was very much seen as a weakness, and it was very much put brackets around Jolie because she's depressed, she's got mental illness. Whereas if I turned up with a broken leg and my leg in plaster, people say, "You poor thing, anything I can do to help." But when it's a mental illness, there's very much this stigma around it.
mm, mm, mm,
Um, And just to give you some idea, if you look at these two, the figures here, this is coming out to around about a third of the adult population it could come to. They've got these two things. Yes, there's going to be some intersectionality between the two, a crossover, but there's a big chunk of people there that are going to be affected by um, anxiety and depression at any one time. So I want to really just focus on those two. And I just included these others just to give some idea of the different things that do crop up and will crop up. Um, PTSD is a big one, particularly if you're dealing with people of, people, veterans. A
mm,
lot of veterans are suffering with that. And to deal with that is, you need to have some kind of empathy and understanding of what's going on. So it gives you an idea. Some of these, particularly these last ones, there's very specific medical help you need for them. You can't expect a line manager at work to give you help with schizophrenia or bipolar or things like that. But to have an understanding and a sympathy and empathy for it is really, really important. So one of the reasons I've talked on this before, and is to remove the stigma. As I said, before, if you've got a broken leg, people are sympathetic.
mm,
I had 8 weeks in a wheelchair when one of my children was about 3 months old, and I broke my leg, and I was in a wheelchair for 3 months, and people bent over backwards to help me. Help with the children, help with this, help with that. Yet when I was in bed with major depression, they weren't there the same. Why is that? Because there's this stigma. It's a a weakness. It's a failing of a person. So, but we all suffer anxiety. We all suffer depression at some level, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that we need help. Um, Admitting, look, I just need some help here. I need some, give me some space, give me some time, whatever. And just be able to, willing to talk openly about it. It's not that it's coffee table chat exactly,
Mm.
but it's more that it's, you'd be able to say to your, at work specifically, go to a line manager and say, look, I'm struggling with a lot of this anxiety. It's really crippling me here. Can you give me time? You know, how many of us have ever gone to a line manager and said, look, my anxiety or depression is too high. Can I have a day off? We ring in sick, we've been physically sick or we've got a cold. We don't, we might not hesitate to ring in for a day off sick. But when it's a mental illness, when it's anxiety, or are we going to give ourselves that time and space to, have we got the open conversation, that dialogue to say, look, I'm struggling here. Can you give me 24 hours? Can you give me a couple of days just to get my head around this? So, what's the impact? What sort of scale is this? Looking at these figures here, there's some quite alarming figures. If you look at the work-related stress, depression, anxiety, that's 72 million working days lost in the UK. Cost of nearly 35 billion.
Mm.
Um, that's a significant chunk of money to businesses. Um, you imagine that being onto your profit line, or profit of your bottom line of your business. You
Yeah.
know, it's a it's a significant chunk. Yet we're losing work because losing days' work from people, employees, because they're stressed, and they may not ring in sick with depression, but it manifests itself in other ways.
Yeah.
Lack of productivity is another one.
Mm.
It'll manifest itself in all kinds of different ways.
Mm.
But there's that cost, and it's working out roughly at £1,300 per employee.
Mm.
That's a cost of employing somebody. It's going to cost you £1,300 a year in lost time, lost revenue, lack of productivity, etc. Which is, it's a significant chunk. Which you've got a team of 20 people. It's 26 grand a year. And then as for training and what sort of training's there, so 69%, it's just over 2/3 of line managers say it's important and they accept that they need to do something on this.
Mm. Mm.
But there's 13. That's what's just between the sixth and the seventh. 1/7 of all um, have ever received any kind of training.
Yeah.
And there is training available. There's free training courses available. There's one which I know in the charity I work for, I've recommended to a couple of people, and you can get a free mental health first aid training, and it's just giving you some very basic tools how to cope with what's coming up. I can't remember the name of the provider. Can't remember the name of it, but yeah, you can get free mental health first aid training. And it just gives you an insight into what can be actually done to protect people on that. And then over a third of line managers want
Mm.
that. It's a requirement. People are actually wanting it. So you've got it. If you've done that kind of training, you put it on your CV. You can put it in your resume. So you've got that skill, and it's really, um, really valuable skill to have. What's the benefits? You invest this money in it. What's the benefits? So you reduce the stress levels. What's it going to do for you? It's going to increase your profits. People are flourishing. Profits flourish. People are happy. People work better. They work more efficiently. Um, Higher productivity. Much more out of people. You know, if you're not feeling great, you're not feeling, all this stress, you might procrastinate. You might sit there, you know, lose focus on a job when
Yeah.
you've got a task in hand. You may sit there doom scrolling on Instagram. Um, Look at all those sorts of things, and if you're feeling anxious and got anxiety about things, sitting on Instagram and looking at pictures of people on Instagram is the worst thing you can do. I
Yeah.
personally attribute it to it's one of the attributes for the reasons for mental health in younger people. The idealistic images there of how they think they should look. None of us ever look like that. I certainly never did. And it just creates that um, level of anxiety that I wish I was, but I'm not. And then, so that's the thing. It, you reduce the stress levels, you'll reduce absenteeism. People won't want
Yep.
to take days off work.
Yep.
Um, you increase your loyalty
Mm.
and decrease staff turnover. People don't leave
No.
bad jobs; they leave bad bosses. If your employers are looking after you, and you know that you're valued and cared for,
Mm.
you stay because you
Yes.
know you've been looked after. And it gets a much better culture in the workplace, so that if you become known, and especially in the whole Salesforce ecosystem, it's a quite an incestuous um, environment. Everybody knows everybody,
Mm.
um, and if you've got a culture um, the business you're working in is not good, it will soon get out. I'm fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate. I can say that Proven Works is a fantastic place to work. They look after us, and they really do. They really look after us really well. Um, as such, I don't mind delivering loyalty to them because their care and empathy engenders our loyalty.
Mm. 100%.
Um, and then and it's a really interesting statistic. There's every pound spent on well-being initiatives, um, getting a 537% return on that money.
Mm.
It's never going to go amiss. It may seem as an expense, but the well
It's, which is,
well-being, healthy atmosphere that it generates,
mm.
the well-being of staff, it's a massive, massive improvement, massive help. Just stop me and if you want to talk about anything, any comments, anything like that,
No,
please.
it's really good. Really good. Very-
So, anxiety and stress. If we just focus on that, what are the signs? How do you spot them in yourself? How do you spot them in somebody else? Everyone's going to be affected differently, and I've just pulled out a selection here of different
Mm.
signs. I can identify straight away with some of these.
Mm.
Procrastination, big one for me. Perfectionism,
Mm.
another big one. Physical illness. I know if I'm stressed, physical illness, I get physically ill with it. Trouble concentrating. Um, you know, all these different things. When you can't just say that someone's irritable, oh, they must be stressed. You've got to look at the whole thing in context. Look at the what's happening.
Mm.
Just be there. Ask a
Mm.
question. Are you okay? And they might not be okay. They might just say no.
Yeah.
I'm struggling a bit,
Yeah.
um, and that's how it is. But it's just to be aware all those different traits. They could just be a sign that someone's really struggling. So how do you deal with it? First thing I say to everybody is you can look at other people, but what about yourself first? Um, be kind to yourself. We're
Mm.
humans. We're all human beings. Um, we've all got human feelings, human emotions. Every one of them. Whatever you're feeling, however anxious you're feeling, however stressed you're feeling, don't ever let anyone tell you it's not valid, it's not real, you're making it up. It's real. is very, very real and it's valid. It's perfectly valid. You are allowed to feel like that. It's a human emotion there to protect you. Anxiety is as an emotion, anxiety is a future emotion. We've had all our experiences in the past. Everything in the past has gone to shape who you are today and
Mm,
built you into the person you are today. However, your anxiety is there to protect you, and it's there to give you cause and say, look, what's going to happen ahead? Are you in the right place? Are you safe? Are you going to be kept safe? When it becomes a problem is it when it takes over.
mm,
If you looked at that, when I'm dealing with hypnotherapy, we look at it and say, what's the scale of it? On a scale of 1 to 10, where's it at?
mm,
And if it's sitting there at a 2 or a 3, that's fine. It's not a problem at all. But when you get up and it's like a 9 and a 10, it's invading in your everyday life. It's affecting the quality of your life. That's when it becomes a problem. But it's still perfectly valid. And that future emotion is because we're worrying about what will happen. We're looking at a set of everything that's happened in the past, and we had this particular set of circumstances and um, events happened in the past, and this was the result. We're now in this situation, and I'm predicting that I'm going to get a worse result than I got last time.
mm, mm,
I like to say to people, we love catastrophizing on things. We love saying what's the worst possible outcome.
mm.
What about if we say to ourselves, what's the best possible outcome?
What's the best thing?
Right? And we know that the result is going to go somewhere on that continuum between the two. We've got the worst possible, we've got the best possible, and then somewhere between the two is the result. And what we want is on that result somewhere near the best possible. But we catastrophize and we automatically assume it's going to be the worst possible.
Mm,
So just give yourself time. Give yourself time to feel those feelings and just understand those feelings. Don't brush them away. Don't brush them under the carpet because that won't help.
mm,
Um, there's 3 things, as I said there, there's 3 things we can do with these emotions. We can suppress them, we can sweep them under the carpet, we can ignore them, we can express them, we can talk about them, and then we can release them. But once we can express it, we've got to be able to express them before we can release that emotion and process it. But what we resist will persist. So if we sweep it under the carpet, it's going to come back. And it's probably going to come back 10 times worse at an even more inconvenient time. And it will bite us in the bum and it will leave us stone cold out,
yeah.
we'll be out of it. So be prepared just to give yourself time. We've got all these feelings, this anxiety and worry. Just give yourself time to understand, look at them, understand where it's coming from, why you've got it, and just give yourself some love, which is really, really important. We see somebody else struggling. We see somebody else with some, what can you do to help? Well, many of us, and I've been in this situation many times, is that you just don't know what to do to help. You're left feeling, what do I do now? How do I help? How can I help? Um, but when you talk, use positive language. I'm not fully trained in it, but there's a whole thing, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and it's about the language you use. Use positive, affirmative language with people. Not necessarily saying it's going to be okay all the time, because sometimes it might not be okay. But you can say, look, this is how it's going to work, but I'm here beside you. I'm here to hold your hand. I'm here to support you.
Mm, mm,
When you're feeling at your very lowest, someone comes and says, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be fine. The last thing you want to hear. You'll know that probably from your Samaritan's
mm,
experience.
mm,
But use positive language, affirmative language. Give people time to be heard. As humans, that is what we want. We want to be heard and we want to be respected. I've said this so many times to people, even when you're dealing with children. dealing with my own children, you could buy them this, that, and the other, and they have all the material things in the world that you could ask for. Yet what they wanted is wanted my time. They want to be heard. They
mm,
want to feel seen. And that's what people want. Just someone to sit down and listen to them, listen to what they've got to say, um, listen to their story. It's why I ended up training in therapy, because I've always done it. I've always sat down and asked people, tell me your story, and then just sit and listen, and they'll tell you, and they tell you all sorts of interesting stuff. And then they start pouring the troubles out and the woes out. It's just it's interesting, and you learn people that way.
mm,
But you can, I mean, I've heard you speak about this active listening before. It's really important to listen and understand what people to say,
yeah,
and listen to how they say it in their words. I'm a terrible culprit for this, but finishing off people's sentences and putting words into their mouth, which may not actually be a true representation of what they're saying. But allow people to say something in their own words, and they will tell you. And it's just give them that time. Just be a friend for them. Be there. It's someone they know that they can turn to. They can have a conversation with if they've got a problem. Um, And then if you're in a position to have a look at what's causing that stress, if you're an employer, if you're a line manager or whoever you are, you say, look, what can we do just to alleviate that stress? What can we do can we take this workload off? We'll take this task off you, and we'll send that to somebody else. We'll just give you that time. It may be it's something that's completely outside of a work environment, but you're going into work with that level of stress. You know, it, there's things. Anxiety happens to all of us all the time.
mm,
Um, we can't always help. We can't always be there to remedy a situation, and it's not our job to remedy every situation.
mm,
But we can be there to listen, to be a friend, and to listen, and give some kind of empathy, um, and listen. Just give them the time and space, and then just some other ways that can we help. Obviously, there's professional help available,
mhm, mm,
which is good. Counselling, behaviour therapies, CBT, talking therapies. Um, I was very fortunate. I had a lot of CBT and talking therapies through NHS back years ago. And I was fortunate. I had a very good therapist who had a good understanding. We got a good rapport. You do have to get someone you can talk to.
yeah,
Um, don't necessarily go for the first one you meet. Uh, I was very fortunate. I say there's other alternative therapies, which is where my hypnotherapy comes in. And the reason I like hypnotherapy is because rather than dealing with the actual effects of the problem, hypnotherapy gives you the opportunity to go back and look at the cause. And often our behaviors and our responses to stressful situations are driven by past events, often from childhood events that
mm, mm,
we may not be able to consciously link.
mm,
I know when I was going through all my training, we had a lot of therapy as part of the training. We were training on each other, and I went back to times when I was 2 years old, and things that happened there, and behaviours that were instigated in the blueprint of my mind when I was 2 years old affected me for the next 40 odd years. And it's scary because you say things to your children in good faith and they're absolutely right in what they're saying, and at this time it fits perfectly. But a child's brain processes it differently,
mm,
and then that affects them all the way through. So,
yeah,
and then of course there's medication, which I'm not a big fan of. It has its place, it has its use. Um, and I'd certainly never knock it. But there's the support system around you is as important, if not as more important, than the medication.
Right.
And then there is always the Samaritans when you're at crisis point. And I hope nobody ever gets there, but people do. Um, and it's amazing. It's an amazing organisation. Um,
Well, we
I had
always need more volunteers, Jolie.
oh dear. I'm not sure my partner would appreciate me donating much more time at the moment, but
Yes, you're already doing a lot for charity, but I was just saying,
it's amazing. I was in a situation, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. A very good friend of mine. I used to work with him. We were very very close, good friends. And he went through a breakup, and I didn't know anything about it. Um, and he rang me one night. I hadn't spoken to him for 18 months. We'd sort of drifted. He'd moved different part of the country and whatnot. And he rang me one night, and we talked for about 2 hours. Fine. Yes, he said he was a bit sad, but he'd broken. His partner had left him, and da 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 da. And he rang me about 3 or 4 days later, and he said he was ready to jump that night, and it was either Samaritans or giving me a call. I don't know why he chose me. I have no idea why he chose to ring me, but it was so humbling. You know, what did I say? I have no idea what I said to that person. Um,
you were there for him. That's all you needed to
you've
be.
got to be there. That's the thing. You have to be there for a person. That's not to. I tell that story not to raise anything to do with me, but it's just that's what happens. People have those experiences,
Mm.
and then the self help as well, which is always good. Just stop and allow yourself to be. Um, Allow yourself to feel those emotions. I say anxiety is a future emotion, and the quickest, simplest way to come back from that future emotion is to come to the present, right where you are. And the
Mm.
simplest way to do that is just to focus on your breathing, because there is nothing more present than your breathing. Right here and now, you're breathing. 10 minutes ago, you were breathing, but that was then. You may be breathing, God willing, you may be breathing in 10 minutes' time. But right here and now,
Yeah.
you're breathing.
Yeah.
So just focus on that breathing. And you just focus, breathe in,
Mm.
breathe out. Just breathe in and breathe out. Do that for a minute, 2 minutes, and just consciously breathing. Most of the time, breathing is just automatic. If you just consciously focus on that, that brings you right to where you are, right where you stand. You notice the sounds around. You might notice the smells. You might you might have your eyes closed. You might have your eyes open. You might see something happening, but you're right there. You're right
Mm.
in the present at that time. So it's bringing you back. It will give you just a little bit of relief from that future anxiety,
Mm.
and to bring you right. And you may be able to then look and say, "Oh, now I'm here, right
Mhm.
in the present. I can look at the future again in a different perspective, a different light." And then the anxiety, where's that going to go? Okay, it may still be there, but it may be alleviated a little. Um, and that's like mindfulness. You're conscious of where you are right here and now, and just embrace the um, embrace the here and now. Um, Meditation. When people think of meditation as ums and ahs and sitting cross-legged and levitating, etc., etc., but
Mm.
just stop and just allow yourself to feel, to meditate. Think about your life. Think about where you are. Think about what you've achieved. Think about what you want to achieve. Just stop and focus. Just give yourself a specific, set of time to do that. It's a relaxation essentially, and it will just brings you back to earth, brings you back to where you are, and it helps you
Mm.
refocus. And you can realign priorities in your life. Work is all consuming. It fills our day with 10 hours a day working. We then have 7 or 8 hours, if you're lucky, in bed. And then the rest of the time, we might spend with family, we might be spending with loved ones, we might be doing our hobbies. But the largest chunk of our day is working. So it consumes us. Um, just sometimes you need to get a focus and say, look, work is it's important. I earn enough money to pay my bills and live, but I work to live, not live to work. Um, Reach out to friends. Always, have someone there. Have someone you've got a friend you can talk to. Most of us have got somebody that we can reach out to. We haven't all. I've been in a position where I didn't,
Mm.
um, and that's really tough. Really, really tough. I was in a position at one point in my life where I came home from work and there was nobody I could ring. Nobody that I could ring for a chat. And it's really hard. Um, so I had to set out to fix it, and I did. That's life's experiences. And then the other thing is, I think we mentioned this the other week at the Women in Tech about journaling.
Mhm.
Really,
Mm.
really powerful. I'm terrible at writing things down. I always have been. It's carry everything in my head. But when you
Mm.
start sitting, you've got problems, all this anxiety and worries and depressive thoughts coming through. If you start write them down and you look at those in black and white on a notepad, you see them there. The power of them is often taken away. We look at them and say, actually, that's a really, really trivial matter when I see it written down, but it looms so large in our mind.
Yeah.
It helps us get that perspective and download. And perhaps you've got all these thoughts going on. You write them all down. You can order them, put them in order, and say, right, well, that's important, that's less important, that's not so important, and you can put them. It helps you categorize and prioritize your life more. So that's why it's really important thing to do with that. Really glad of your thoughts and input, Bay, because you've got a lot of experience here with this sort of stuff as well. So,
I think you've covered, you know, all of it that that pertains to mental health. I don't have anything more to add. All I know is just what I do at Sam's, which is listening. And you talked about that already. And just being there, like how you were for your friend, and he was so lucky to have you there as an option to call. I think that people would prefer someone they know that they feel safe with as opposed to Samaritans, because you know the history, you know them, a part of them. When our callers call us, we are only a stranger and we only know what they tell us.
yeah,
So he was really lucky to have you. I'm glad you were there for him, and for him to tell you after the fact. Sometimes people don't,
yeah,
you know, and it was really good that he told you after.
yeah.
So that was really
It's
good.
um, it's a funny one. There's some people say they'd rather talk to someone they know, but as a therapist, um, some people would rather talk to somebody they don't know, because to tell a stranger your problems, they know that it's never going to go back in the family or be talked about around the coffee table.
So the thing that you point out there is safety,
Yes,
right? So they want to talk to a stranger because they don't feel safe. They don't have anyone they feel safe with to share how they think, how they
yeah,
feel. Either because somebody might try to solve their problems by reporting it to their family, or be judgy. How
yeah,
can you think of leaving your partner, or whatever that might be. So I think the key thing is safety, and your friend felt safe around you. That's the key difference. People
Yeah,
call us because they haven't got any safe space
yeah.
to talk.
Well, this is it. There are sadly a lot of people that don't have friends or people around them that they know they can talk to them about anything. So
Mm,
my friend, we'd worked together for 7 or 8 years, and we literally sat across the desk from each other in the office, and we would. He had the same weird kind of humour that I had, and we talked and joked about most things in life.
mm,
um, and yeah, we just always got on really well. And then say he left, and then I left shortly after as well. And then we got in touch. We kept in touch for a bit, and then we sort of drifted our own way. He moved north. He moved north, and I moved south. So it sort of the distance came in, but we kept in touch. And then we'd gone about 18 months or so without speaking, but and another really interesting one I had once was as a friend, someone I'd grown up with from ever since I was a child. He posted something on Facebook, and I just read it, and I just got a funny feeling.
mm,
Um, and I'm like, where do I go? Well, there's something not right here. And I rang him. I
mm,
said, how you doing? And he said, I'm okay. No, I'm not good. He'd just come out of hospital after a
mm,
suicide attempt. And I'm like, I'm here. He says, I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't speak. I'm like,
mm,
I get you completely.
mm,
But I spoke with, he had the hospital and they did what they did. I spoke with him and I spent a lot of time with him. About 4 months later, he was back out in the pubs playing gigs on his guitar, which was that's his passion. And it's just so lovely to see.
oh,
Just the back out there just to
yeah.
talk, you know.
Well, it sounds like you have all the, building blocks of being a good Samaritan. Okay, sorry, I'm hustling. I'm always hustling and
Oh,
recruiting.
listen, that's your job to hustle.
Well, think about it, Jolie, right? Maybe not now, maybe when you have a bit more bandwidth. And I just want to say thank you
Yeah,
for,
no,
for today's session.
no problem.
It feels like a nice wrap around. I'm almost towards the end now, where we've talked about mental health all throughout, and Richard had great frameworks on cross sectional and his stress bucket, and this one just kind of quite nicely bringing it to a close. And I am going to have to close down because my eyes are feeling
Yeah, I
quite.
can see your head is just good.
Uh, yes. So before we go, I'm just going to hustle for more donations, please, everybody. If you have found it kind of like useful, please donate to my lovely branch. I'm totally in love with the people there. Is just my people, my family. And also, if you've been listening, I hope you found it useful. Jolie's session was amazing. Lots of really good tips. And I hope you're able to create that space for your friend, just like how Jolie's provided that two stories. You can make a difference. You don't have to be super trained or anything. Just be there and just listen and pick up cues. That's what happened with that
Yeah,
Facebook message, wasn't it?
yeah.
So I'm
Just
just
the tone of the message said something's wrong.
yeah. So
You
follow your spider sense
yeah.
and ask. The worst that can happen is no, I'm fine. I really am fine. Just get off my case. No, it's okay.
Well,
Right?
I have a standard response. When anyone tells me they're fine, it's an acronym: a fragile, insecure, neurotic, and emotionally unstable. So never tell me pain. Never tell me you're fine.
I am
I'm like,
fabulous.
really?
Okay. I
Yeah, and thanks for some of the comments we've got as well.
Yeah, no, some
Um,
really good comments.
just looking at one there from Sarah, voice memoing herself. I would do that, but I hate listening to my own voice.
Do what works for you. Yeah.
Exactly, yes, exactly. If it works for you, it's fantastic to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I
Right.
need a comfort break before my next one. So
Concentrate. Go and get yourself some
thank
coffee.
you. Thank you so much, Jolie, and thank you, everybody. I hope you found this useful. Take care.